Plants vs. Zombies, Garden Warfare 2. Oh man, where do I begin? Garden Warfare 2 was one of my favorite games as a younger person, and today it goes as one of my most favorite and beloved games of all time. The gameplay, the characters, the music, all of it stacked up to be one of the greatest and long-lasting experiences in gaming I've ever had. Garden Warfare 1 was amazing, Garden Warfare 2 was even better, and it was a great sequel to the first game. Many have even said that it's the perfect sequel. And then Battle for Neighborville came in. Battle for Neighborville, if you had never played a Garden Warfare game before, would have been great. Or heck, if it were the first game in its series, it would have done great. But it wasn't the first. Battle for Neighborville was the follow-up to Garden Warfare 2, and it came up short. It was not the game that fans wanted. It was not the great follow-up that many of us wanted Garden Warfare 2 to have. It didn't have nearly as much love, and while it was still a quality game, it was missing some key elements that made Garden Warfare fun, that made Garden Warfare 2 fun, that made the series unique. And it basically turned into another team and class-based multiplayer shooter that suspiciously mimicked TF2 and Overwatch. It was a wannabe. But what if it wasn't like this? What if EA and PopCap decided not to stray from the formula that Garden Warfare 1 and 2 had created? What if they did what fans wanted and expected from these kinds of games? What if they built from the foundation of the last two instead of trying to make something half new? What if we got our Garden Warfare 3? I am JHunt72, and this is Garden Warfare 3, What Could Have Been. Garden Warfare 3 would have been quite similar to the previous entries.
No way!
But of course, it still would have been trying to look forward for the series. Looking at the similarities between the art style in Garden Warfare 1 and 2 shows that they're basically identical, with the models from Garden Warfare 2 being slightly updated to be more high quality. Now, I don't dislike the new character designs in Battle for Neighborville. In fact, I feel that much of it was really well done in terms of modernizing the shooter series. However, I did have some complaints with how derpy some characters looked, like in Citron and the Kernel Corn. The Rose kind of creeped me out at first, but she actually doesn't look too bad. The Peashooter just feels off when I look at him. I'm not sure what to think, I just feel like there's something wrong. But overall, the art style choice is fine, and it does a great job with bringing together both the old and new characters. And of course, I don't have a degree in digital design. I don't have a degree, period. So I'm hardly in any place to say, it should look something like this. I definitely think that at the very least, they would add some more small details to characters, like small snowflakes showing behind ice characters or something like that, if they would have variants. But that's enough about the art style. I know what you really want to hear about. The things that make the Garden Warfare series fun. The gameplay. And arguably, one of the greatest things that they decided to leave out in Battle for Neighborville. Let's start with the character variants. The Peashooter, a staple in any plant team. As in, the team is full of staples. Please stop, I am overdosing on zinc and steel. The Peashooter already has one of each of the main elemental variants like fire and ice, electric and toxic, but it doesn't have a clouding variant, such as the Sunflower's Alien Flower, or the Foot Soldier's Park Ranger. So let's give him one of those. We'll call this one the Soup Pea. The Soup Pea has a heavier and slower projectile, but on impact, it leaves behind a mist of pea soup that damages zombies over time. It would last less than a second and do similar damage to the Stink from the Park Ranger. The pea itself would have a damage range between 20 and 25 instead of between 25 and 30. And it would have 16 ammo instead of 12. It's a make-em scramble kind of pea shooter. This pea shooter would be that disgusting combination of green and brown in terms of color, and would have lumps all around it like a soup. And for good measure, it makes a goopy, sloshy sound when it reloads. The second Peashooter variant should be a legendary. Come on. In fact, I think that all the old characters should have a legendary variant. You know, the ones that build up a meter and then go on a killing spree. Yeah, the Peashooter should have one of those. It is one of the best combat classes in the game after all. And it should also be accuracy based, like the Commando, Agent P, or Law P. The Repeater would be a legendary Peashooter with a 2-shot burst fire and a similar fire rate to the Sun Pharaoh. It fills up its meters with kills. And what is its meter, you may ask? Why, it's 3-peat, of course! Filling up the 3-peat meter increases the damage and base speed and reload speed of the Repeater, in addition to making all hits critical hits and giving the Repeater a 3-shot burst fire until the meter runs out. Without the meter active, the Repeater does between 10 and 15 damage per peat normally, and 13 to 16 damage critically, and it has 24 ammo in total. With the meter, however, it does between 20 and 25. It may not sound like that much, but when combined with the 3-shot burst and the 24 ammo clip, that's a lot of damage. If you aimed all your shots well and were right in front of an imp, you could destroy them pretty much instantly. And let's get this out of the way. I feel that these legendary variants should be soft snowballing characters. They should initially do less damage overall than the regular versions until they have the meter filled, and during the meter, they should be pretty much direct upgrades to the regular plants. I don't want another Disco Chomper or Toxic Brains who are straight upgrades to the regular versions that become even more powerful because of their pre-existing power. I want legendaries that reward skilled players who can still get things done with a handicap. Moving on, we have the Sunflower, who had arguably the most unique variants in Garden Warfare 2. I wanted to add a Bubble Flower and a Cloudy Flower, but Sunflower is missing Ice and Toxic Elemental variants, so let's give her 3. Hey, if Chomper gets 4 in Garden Warfare 2, technically, the Sunflower can at least get 3. Okay, so first up, the Snowflower or Flake Flower. It's an Ice Elemental Sunflower with a slower fire rate, but it slows down zombies with each shot, and with enough of them, they will be frozen in place. Just like regular Ice Elementals, guys. Damage is decreased from 6 to 8 normally to being 5 to 7, and critically it does 7 to 9 instead of 8 to 10. This Sunflower will have a blue snowflake design for its petals. The Troll Flower will fire a mean sun pulse that makes zombies sad, dealing the toxic effect. The effect does 2 damage per tick and can spread between zombies because sad zombies make other zombies sad too. The shot itself does pretty much the same damage as the Snowflower. The Trowflower looks like a troll with a big round nose and a beige colored cell wall. Those last 2 variants I feel are great for a support class like the Sunflower. Being able to deal a decent amount of damage or being able to support your team in the fight while not having to focus too hard on actually fighting. Toxic damage is great for just sending off a few shots, and ice damage makes it easier for targets to be hit, so they allow you to better support and prioritize your team. This next one, however, I feel is the culmination of support. The Cloudy Flower fires a dimmed gray sun pulse that only deals 4 to 7 damage normally and 6 to 9 damage critically. Filling up the legendary meter sounds pretty difficult under these conditions, right? I mean, how are you expected to get kills with this? You don't. You're not expected to get kills with this. You fill up your meter by healing and reviving your teammates. Healing fills up a small amount, but reviving fills up about 1/8 of it. And when your meter is filled, you become the ultimate angel of a support class. The meter is called Cloudy Day, but when it's filled, it turns into Sunny Day. When filled, it increases your movement speed, gives you damage resistance, and most importantly, almost doubles your heal speed in addition to having 3 beams, halves your reviving speed, and gives you the Sunburst effect. What's the Sunburst effect? Well, in Battle for Neighborville, the Sunflower has an ability called Sunny Side Up that releases multiple bursts of sun that can heal allies. With the meter active, you basically have that occur every 3 seconds, and it happens again every time you take damage, although on a much smaller scale, just like the Sunbeam in PvZ2. This is basically like pulling an ultimate with your team, making most of them tanks as long as they stay close to you, and on top of that, it finally gives people who heal and revive their teammates an incentive, despite the fact that keeping your allies alive, which in turn keeps you safer, should already be incentive enough, without ruining what makes Sunflower a good support class. The better support you are, the better support you become. The Cactus is easy. First, I want a Toxic Cactus. I mean, come on. This one we'll call the viral cactus. Not like internet viral, but like a virus. The initial shot deals 18 damage normally and 22 damage critically, and it'll have a total of 12 ammo. Any zombies who get hit with a needle will take toxic-like damage, but it won't spread to other zombies. That is, until that zombie dies. If that zombie is killed by another needle, or just by that toxic effect from that cactus, then they will explode after 1 second, dealing 20 damage to nearby zombies and giving them the toxic effect too. This will be a really effective crowd control cactus, especially if you prioritize your targets. It would have a much greater payoff than the electric cactus, but it only works after you get that kill. That would be a bit more difficult since you would do significantly less damage than the regular cactus. That is, without the toxic effect. Yes, the legendary cactus. You know, since they decided to make the cactus an organic widowmaker in Battle for Neighborville, what do you say we roll with that idea, huh? The spider cactus has that classic charge up shot that, unlike the future cactus, charges up only when zoomed as opposed to when held down. And like the future cactus, charged shots use up more ammo. The needle does 75 damage fully charged, 50 damage halfway, and 20 damage uncharged. If the cactus is not zoomed in, they will only do 20 damage normally. Critically, however, the charge does 100 damage fully charged, 75 damage halfway, and 25 damage uncharged. And not zoomed in, it'll do 25. Unscoped shots are pretty slow, however, being just about as fast as the camo cactus. Its legendary meter is called Spider's Vision, which, as you can guess, allows it to see the entirety of the enemy team, if the cactus is scoped in. The cactus can't just see everybody everywhere, that's too much. The meter will also give the cactus a faster charge time, increased movement speed when zoomed, and it will increase the highest critical damage to 120, making it possible to one-shot scientists and imps with overheal, and two-shot all-stars with overheal, and it would be much harder to counter-sniper. You can't just one-shot 125 health characters though. The spider cactus, to balance all of these things, in addition to a few other things, only has 100 health. She'd look like a black cactus with red-black widow patterns, and would have 2 sets of cactus arms, maybe even 3 or 4. Look, the Chomper technically got 4 extra variants in Garden Warfare 2, and I would love to only give him 1, but that's out of spite and not out of what's best for the franchise. So I'll bite. And before we start, I'd just like to say that I think the Chomper should keep the ability to eat zombies from behind. But they just need to make it actually work, because I mean, come on, sometimes they're not even behind! Now we'll start with the Wolf Chomper. The Wolf Chomper will deal 20 damage per bite instead of 25, but that's only uncharged. Half charged, the Wolf Chomper will do a solid 35. This is of course slower to compensate. And fully charged, the Wolf Chomper will lunge forward a short distance, dealing around 50 damage. This lunge is not long enough for it to be used for mobility, and missing a zombie will leave you vulnerable for about half a second. But if you connect with the zombie from behind with the Wolf Chomper, then you can swallow that zombie. This is the ideal Chomper for flanking and not getting caught, and it resembles the wolf in more than one way. You never turn your back to a wolf. Of course, to balance this, the Wolf Chomper only has 125 health and cannot swallow zombies without charging unless it's burrowing. Lastly, the Wolf Chomper would have similar fur to the Yeti Chomper, but it would have brown and gray fur as opposed to white, and would have cute little wolf ears. Also, there's a skin for the Chomper in Battle for Neighborville that pretty much has the exact look that I'm looking for. Like, this is what we got instead of variants, guys. I mean, come on. The Beat Chomper... Wait, I can do better than that. Hold on. Okay, let's see. Music, yeah. No. Oh, yep, here we go. Yeah, this is it. The Beat Chomper is a music-themed chomper with headphones similar to the Fat Beat in PvZ2 and a red color like that of a beat. This chomper only does 10 damage with each chomp, but each chomp releases a sound wave that deals another 10 damage, dealing a total of 20. The sound wave will hit any zombies around that chomper, but the sound wave will only be released if the bite from that chomper hits a zombie. So you can't just spam it to clear a crowd without actually hitting anyone. It's like a combination of the spray variants and the bite variants of the chomper. It's an amazing remix.
Oh yeah, one more thing.
And I forgot to mention, it attacks at 175 BPM. Kernel Corn, the frontline corn. The clone of the foot soldier corn, the military corn. Let's stop spamming corn. Anyway, our first kernel variant shall be Kettle Corn. His head is silver, like a kettle, and his cobs are brown due to caramel covering. The Kettle Corn does about the same damage as the plain kernel. However, the firing rate of its caramel cob buster gets faster and faster the more it fires. It starts off pretty slow, being slower than the startup for Breakfast Brain's laser. It's waffles. And it's better. But after 3 seconds, it becomes twice as fast as the regular kernel's cob busters. It also has infinite ammo, although it can overheat, or it gets too sticky, and the cooldown for overheating is about 3.5 seconds. Next up is the Cooled Cob. He's not just Cooled Cob, he's the Cooled Cob. His head is encased in ice, like Chillman, and he has sunglasses both on the inside and on the outside. He's that cool. His husk and cob also have icicles hanging off of them. His primary does 4 to 6 damage normally and 6 to 8 damage critically, both of which are slightly less than the plain kernel. Toxic Corn. Why not? This corn has a yellow hazmat headwear over his head, and the rest of his husk will also be that same shade of yellow. The cobs are uncovered, however, and they glow hella green. Toxic green. He does 4 to 6 damage normally and 6 to 8 damage critically. And of course, he does the toxic effect to anyone he hits. Anyone nearby, and anyone nearby anyone he hits. Alright. Citron. Arguably the coolest plant, at least looks-wise. I mean, he's from the future, he's got those sick shades, anyway. The first Citron variant will be his primary fire from Battle for Neighborville. We'll call him the Juicy Citron. His primary fire was the Juice Cannon. The Juice Cannon fires 3 projectiles at once, dealing 3 damage per projectile normally and 4 critically. It also fires pretty fast, and has 50 ammo total. The Citron does not have a fire elemental, so let's give him one. The Sour Citron is so sour that people catch on fire. Yeah, it makes sense. It's even oranger too, if that's possible, and it has a flame effect all around it. Its primary fire will deal less damage than the regular beam, only doing 2 to 6 damage normally and 2 to 8 damage critically. And just like the regular beam, it does have a small amount of splash damage, around half a meter. And of course, it has the fire effect. So, I was going to do a burst fire variant of the Citron. And I know that probably wouldn't have been the best option for the Citron. But then I had another idea. The blood orange. This scary citrus fruit will juice the life force from all its vanquishes, gaining a total of 40 health for each kill. He does the same damage as the regular Citron, but without splash damage. And in addition to this, he only has 175 health. Shock Rose, Shock Rose, Shock Rose, Shaquille O'Neal. Look, I've wanted an electric rose ever since like a year ago. I mean, it just makes sense. The Rose is a crowd controlling character. She benefits the most when a bunch of enemies are close to each other and does best to disperse that group. And you're telling me that she wasn't given the very variant that benefits specifically when a bunch of enemies are right next to each other? She even has an ability that slows down all enemies within a certain area. That would be perfect for an electric The shock rose has an electric blue color scheme, a crown made of an electric grid, and its wand is shaped like a lightning rod, of course. The shock rose fires a homing electric thistle that shocks enemies it passes as opposed to enemies it hits. The electric damage will deal 5 damage to all zombies afflicted, and the thistle itself will deal 3 damage. This means that hitting a designated target should do about 8 damage, only 1 less than the normal rose. I know that doesn't sound like much, but when a bunch of enemies are right next to each other and every single one of them is taking about 5 damage at the very least, in conjunction with their 30 ammo clip, that damage starts to stack up. In addition to this, the projectile starts about as fast as the regular thistles, but slows down to about 3/4 the speed of the regular homing thistles over time. So a person could theoretically get hit twice if they were moving in the same direction at medium ranges, not at close range. And lastly, the thistles can pass through multiple enemies. The guard rose, a rose who wished to be at the front lines. She was given more health and more damage, although at the cost of being a bit slower and not having slow falling. The guard rose is pink and has much spikier thorns, along with the shield emblem on its head, similar to the fire rose. She has 150 total health and deals 11 damage and has 25 ammo instead of 30. Alright, now I need to think of something unique for this next rose. Maybe something that adheres to the properties of the homing thistles. Think, dude. What is something that flies around in the air, homes in on potential victims, is very annoying to deal with, and heck, maybe also has lifesteal? I mean, a vampire rose would be pretty cool. Mosquitoes. Oh dear. The Rose Skeeto is a vampiric variant for the rose. She has a gray color scheme, wears a mosquito mask, and I don't even want to imagine what the wand looks like. The Rose Skeeto deals 8 damage per homing mosquito shot, and each shot that connects heals her for 3 health. However, to compensate for this, she only has 85 health total. Wow. That took a lot longer than I thought it would. Dang, I thought I'd cover this in like 25 minutes tops, covering everything, but I think I'm gonna have to split these into multiple videos. Next time, I'll cover the Garden Warfare 1 and Garden Warfare 2 zombies, and then after that, you get to finally hear my speculation of the Battle for Neighborville variants. Until next time, stay cool, cucumbers.